People need KARRIEM Riggins drums if they want to have superpowers. Peace, y'all. My name is KARRIEM Riggins. I'm a drummer, DJ, MC, producer, and a father. And we are here at Sunset Sound in Studio 3 to talk about my play series I created with native instruments called KARRIEM Riggins Drums. When I first started, I was 3 years old with the red set of Gretsch drums, 4 years old. Growing up in Detroit, Michigan, my dad was playing with Grand Green, so I was around for a lot of those rehearsals. There's a guy that my dad played with named Marcus Belgrave, who actually gave me my first set of drums, but it wasn't like he gave them directly to me. He just put them in our crib because people kept breaking in his house. And I set him up and started playing, and he was like, wow, like, you got rhythm. I wanted to create KARRIEM Riggins drums because I know as a producer, sometimes I get into a producer's rut where the ideas don't flow as fluent. And these drums that we integrated into the play series, they spark inspiration. As soon as I hear the drum with the actual mic placement and the effects and everything, it kind of makes me want to blossom into making a song. So I start with the drums first. So I think that is what, people will hear and be inspired to do. So we're going to get into one of the kits, one of my favorite kits, the Cheap Suite. I got a lot of chances to go record digging with Jay Dilla. We would go in Ann Arbor, Michigan at a store called Encore Records, as well as a spot in Ferndale, Michigan called Record Collector. And they had an extensive collection of Moog records. Dilla put me on a lot of those records. Some of them had like an 8-bit kind of sound. Super Mario, a little cheap. That was the reference Dilla gave to those records, was cheap. So this is kind of my ode to Dilla. And we have different options. We can add a spring to it, the spring amp. If you click over to the pattern page, you'll see that I added 16 different preset patterns. And I added these to all of the kits, 16 kits, 16 patterns. You can move it around on each key and it will stay synced with your session as well as the tempo. And this is a beat that I did with my brother James Poyser, who we have an album coming out soon. This is one off of our LP. The name of this kit is Carte Blanche. It reminds me of a lot of the stuff I was doing with my MPC 3000, a real punchy sound, super analog. And here is another idea with my brother James Poyser. Well, I'm very honored to have Jason Jägel do the artwork for this play series, and he actually used a brush to paint the artwork for this, which is incredible to me. It's like a conversation that we're having from the live element of what I'm doing on this side to him painting with the brush. I feel like he had a great interpretation of what I was doing, on this side. So the artwork speaks to what I'm doing. A lot of these drums people play, you know, but there's the special thing with mic placement and finding the different nuances and tuning to make it sound different. Learning how to fish out different frequencies from the drum. And I would say over the years I learned so much. So some of the sounds are replicas of some of the sounds that I actually sample. So I found how to find those tones in the drum where we don't have to sample records anymore. We can go right to the play series and hit the button and it's sounding raw. The name of this kit here is Anlg Soul, and it's inspired by my Ludwig drums, Legacy Mahogany. A lot of these drums are very small in depth, and I played a 22-inch kick drum. So these are the tones from the kick. This is a 5.5 snare drum. And this one actually has stems, so you have the option to turn up the spring amp or down if you want a tight mix sound. And you can turn up the room on this one. That's a snare dribble. Some custom Zildjian hi-hats. The bell of the hi-hat. It's a synth bass. This is actually the 6.5 snare drum. Open custom Zildjian hi-hat. It's a voice sample. And these congas are going through a guitar pedal. Has a very interesting sound. And a hi-hat, I'm sorry, a tambourine.
My name's Kyle Hoffman. I'm an engineer in Los Angeles here. We started working together up at NRG in North Hollywood and then made our way down here to Sunset Sound. We started off working together on an Esperanza Spalding record, and we just been working together ever since. You know, one of the things that we always do is I try to come into every session with a fresh perspective. So like we try not to do the same thing twice. And this instrument that we're, working on was kind of the same approach. I didn't really come into it with any kind of idea of what we were gonna make. I brought all my toys and we just created something and then went with it from there.
Kyle has a very, very genius technique in mic placement. I think that hearing those different tones, like you hear different tones, and when you put the mic in a certain place, you hear different frequencies. So those different frequencies will definitely trigger me to do different things rhythmically. But working with him is incredible. He is like giving me so many options and choices to use.
I really don't use any plugins at all. I use a lot of tape delays, vintage stuff, distortion boxes. We use the live chambers here at Sunset Sound, some modular synths, cassette decks, and all kinds of different stuff to just try to create a unique drum sound that doesn't sound like everything else. I've been creating these techniques actually 100% around Karriem's drumming, and he's the only person that it works for. If I try to do these drum sounds with anybody else, they kind of look at me sideways and what is this? But for the style that we do and for his drumming, like, it's perfect, it's beautiful.
There's a lot of studios that I've recorded at, and I must say that this room in particular has so much vibe in here just because Prince recorded here for so many years. I know in the vocal booth here, he had a king-size bed and he sang a lot of vocals in there. So I just feel the vibes from him being here, and the sound that I get in this room is definitely not duplicatable in any other studio I recorded at. So it's extremely special here. This is another one of my favorite kits, and I named this one the Purple Room, and it's very inspired by Prince. It's special to me. This is actually an 18-inch bass drum, and that's a 5.5 snare. Give a shot at the 5.5. This is actually an open snare. Sounds like a tom, but it's an open 6.5 snare drum tuned down. That's actually me hitting the side of the snare. Zildjian hi-hat. It's the bell of the hi-hat. Sci-fi sound. Very high woodblock. This is like the bell of the cymbal. It was actually a Chinese cymbal. An analog snare. And some percussion. And a crash. One of the things I like to implement in my production and my playing is practicing and playing starting ideas in different time signatures. It allows me to be able to play different rhythms that inspire me to do something different. You know, it's definitely a different swag. Now we're going to get into the absolute 5/4 kit. So I recorded these patterns in 5/4, so it's subdivided for 4/4, and hopefully you'll get some inspiration from hearing some different rhythms and syncopation. These MIDI patterns that I recorded can also be dragged into your session. So you just grab whatever pattern you like and drag it right on. And let's play this. Say you don't like something, and just drag another option on. So this would just be a breakdown of the percussion. And down here at the bottom, you have the macros. There's a high pass filter, a low pass filter, reverb, saturation, and punch. So let's play around with the high pass filter. A low pass filter. We have reverb. And then we have saturation. We have punch. And what's cool about this complete keyboard, you can also control it and it corresponds with the session. Surprisingly, I recently did a session and I was supposed to play drums. And before the session, I loaded up KARRIEM RIGGINS Drums. And I was just tapping around playing, and the musicians just started playing. And I did actually the whole session with the play series. So I feel like this is just another way to be creative. And it's special, you know, because there's different nuances in the play series that I would do that I wouldn't do on the drums, and vice versa. So, you know, it's just another weapon in the arsenal. You know what I'm saying? You know, I want to hear this in movies. I want to hear it on records. I want to hear, you know, how creative you can get with the stems and all the macros and the different mic placement options. There's just so many opportunities in here to do something and be different and sound different from any producer. I want people to sound different than how I would use it, you know, so I'm looking forward to hearing that.